Hey there, and welcome to this course on Malagueña. There's a lot to do in here, and let's just get right into it. Let's take an overview of this whole piece and kind of look at the lay of the land from 30,000 feet. So up here, if we take a look, what we have is, we got 2 pages of music here. We're in 3/4 time. You can hardly see that, but that's what it is. And then just looking at the broad strokes, you can just notice how the music changes in different sections. So to this point, we have these big chords, and this is our intro right here. And then we get into this, this melody going with this high E just bouncing on top. And that goes for a while until we get to right here, we can notice. And then we have something different, where we now have 2 notes on the top with a lower melody bouncing around with the bass line. And that goes until we get to da-da-da-dum, right around in here. Well, then things change, and we have a lot more, a couple of melody notes, then a big rolled chord. That's what that big squiggle is. A couple of melody notes, more rolled chords. So this is a whole different section, and we don't have to know very much about this. We're just looking at it and saying, this is another section. So this, I'm going to say, this would be the intro. This could be a big A section, this whole thing. And then we would get down here to where we then have a big B section. And that goes until when? Well, if we look over, then we can just see that somewhere right in here, we get back into this low bass with something happening on top. And in this case, we have a couple of notes. So it's similar to this other stuff. It's just that we have a different upper pattern now. We have this triplets and 2 notes on the top. And that goes until when? We can just notice when it changes. Oh, looks like about right here. We go to where now we're just doubling the top note, and we have a little bit higher melody. So let's just call this big section over here the like the A section prime or something like that. It's like the A section over here, but it's different. You could call it C, but it wouldn't be totally true because the notes are so similar. Then at the very end, we have the outro. And that is the basic lay of the land for this piece. Now, of course, we'll get much more technically into it, but the way that we're going to go about this is you don't actually need the intro, and you don't actually need the outro. So we're going to save those till last to look at. And so we're going to start right here of looking at, we're going to start right here with the A section in our lessons and work through these, work through that, and then come back. And so that's the way we're going to work, and then we'll look at the intro and the outro at the end. Now, there's a couple more things I'd like to say about this. There are levels of difficulty that you can apply to this. So if it's not that hard. I mean, if with speed everything gets hard, you can make any easy thing hard by playing it fast. And so take speed out of the equation. This doesn't need to be fast. It needs to be steady, but it doesn't need to be fast. And so this doesn't have to be a really complex, difficult piece. Now, I'm going to bring a level of complexity to it simply because you might want that. And if we get into things that are over your head or that are just beyond your physical skill set right now, then still just notice them. Know that, okay, well, that's on the horizon. I'll be able to work with that kind of stuff later, but right now I might not be quite at that point, and so I'll take it in steps. And that's the way to do it. But it's good to still be aware that these things exist. And we'll talk a lot about the rolled chords in one example. I consider this practically a study on rolling chords because we do it in a few different ways in this piece, and we can do it in a few different ways, and it can make it really, we can change the texture by the way that we handle those things. And so if you're just starting out and you're not quite to the point where you can work in some of those things yet, and that's perfectly fine. Just back burner it, come back to it in a year or two, and that's totally fine. Also, because of the similarity between the second page and the first page, even if you don't necessarily have the chops to do this arpeggio pattern up here in the right hand, so fast and everything with the doubled notes on there, you can actually do the entire piece. You can simplify this piece and you can bring it down and basically just do this first A section right here, just this section right here. And you could do that 4 times and then play the middle section. And so you could really compress the piece to where it was much simpler. And then as you practice and get more comfortable with it, you could add on other sections. So it's a little bit modular in that way. you don't have to do it the way that it's written on here. There's been a million renditions of Malagueña and different arrangements of it. So there's a little bit of freedom, there's a lot of freedom as far as how you handle things and how much complexity you bring to it. Because you have really easy versions out there that are literally just this first little A section right here, and that's the entire piece, to big, long, 10-minute, incredibly difficult, crazy, elaborate Malagueñas. And there's everything in between. So there's really a lot of freedom to structure it at the level that you are currently playing at or just above so that you can have something to work towards. So if I start talking about something that's completely over your head, then don't get daunted. Just notice, okay, well, that will go on in the future, and then come back to where you are and focus on the tasks at hand. So that said, let's get into section 1. See you there.